I am under the opinion that as time goes on, it'll become harder and harder to come up with original content, as we will get to a point where every possible thing and idea that could be made has been made. With this knowledge in mind, people have begun branching out with what is being adapted for screen or television. Video games are on the rise thanks to recent successes, and book adaptations will continue till the end of time. And there seems to be a new wave of different adaptations movies into musicals, TV shows to movies, movies to TV shows, etc. Now, with all this, I want to go through all the projects I want to be adapted, and to do that, I have a few things I will discuss with each. One, give a description of the IP that I want adapted for anyone who has no idea what I'm talking about. Two, why I want it adapted. Three, how it can be adapted, and four, which is kind of an optional one, are there any problems with adapting this particular IP? So, with that in mind, let's begin. Also, this will be two parts. Part two will be out soon. Can't give a specific date, depends on when I get around to it. So, Beast Quest, for anyone who didn't have an Australian childhood, is a still running series of books about a young knight, his friend, and her wolf companion who travel through various lands battling various terrifying and creative beasts. It was a video game, which I have, but that only has 4 of the 6 original beasts. And there are 31 series of this, and it's still going. The author just has so many ideas. You go, dude. The main reason I want these adapted is they're fun. Classic fantasy that is simplistic, it has a lot of good world building, especially with the beasts, and it's not so kid friendly that it feels like episodes of like Wildcrats, I don't know. But the point is, it's something different from the classic fantasy genre, and it's also along the lines of Ninjago in that it has similar themes every season, but with different beasts, skulls, and even artifacts, as the second series of books is called The Golden Armor. So how would I adapt these? Well, a series makes the most sense to be able to treat each series like that. You could probably get away with 6 episodes for 6 books, but maybe you could also split them in two to give you more time to develop the characters and the story. Maybe three if you want even more. Animated or live action works, and a movie could work, but my relationship with book to movie adaptations is sketchy, so I would trust a series more. And there is one major problem with adapting a series, and it's repetitiveness. I haven't read past the third series, so I do not know how different the others are. But I feel like the problem with 31 series and counting is that fans and viewers may just get bored after a while. So maybe this wouldn't work as well. Maybe only one or two could be adapted, but I still want someone to try because it has potential. Also, additionally, I was reading up on the series, and there are a ton of books and spin offs and other series that have been created, so there is tons of content here to adapt. Stuart Daly created a 3-part series about a fantasy world rocked by war that is forced to use a group of teens with magical beasts trained to be master thieves to save the world. So, a pretty normal young adult fantasy novel. This was one of the first low scale, as in not as well known as like Percy Jackson, that I thoroughly enjoyed, and it was an intriguing concept and just well written and easy to adapt. Once again, as will be a recurring themes across the video, it is another unique fantasy story despite having some slightly repeated elements. I think we can confidently get a 3-season show from this. It would not only be another good fantasy show, but also bring attention to a good series. There's a ton of good stuff here: the conflict, the kingdom, the training the teens go through, the artifacts, and the various operations they have to go through to try and win the war. And the main character is already a thief, so this breaks an archetype of an incompetent new character having to be trained and all the classic fantasy magic school stuff, which is refreshing in this age of young adult fantasy. So yeah, Estranged is a 2-part and not yet confirmed 3-part graphic novel series that is definitely more unique and original than the previous two. It details 2 boys, a changeling prince and a normal human boy, who are swapped at birth, and then the 2 worlds are brought back together thanks to a royal coup in the underground High Fae kingdom. It sounds. It is as cool and even cooler than it sounds. There is a lot of unique stuff in this series that would make it a fascinating watch, with the modern world versus the fantasy world beneath, the high fae and their behaviors, the 2 brothers and their relationship with various people, and magic, sword fights, and other typical fantasy stuff done very well with this very unique idea of 2 different worlds. A movie, I think, works a little better. The books are pretty short, so I think an animated movie to reflect the style could do pretty well, and it would better reflect the various styles of the different creatures. A limited series could work that combines both books or split them into two, but movies in this case actually work best, so guess I'm breaking my law already about book to movie adaptations. Earthsea is another very unique fantasy story that takes some of the typical tropes and qualities of the story and does things a little differently. A story of wizards in an archipelago style fantasy world with a variety of different laws, legends, monsters, and epic stories. This one was very unique and doesn't feel like fantasy at some point, feeling like a long-winded origin story for a great legend of these islands. And it is so very different that it would feel quite refreshing in a world with Rings of Power, House of the Dragon, stuff like that. A series is the only way the story can be adapted. People who have read the books will understand, which is a perfect segue into the problems with adapting this. So the story feels very complicated and convoluted, even though that may just be me. But it may be hard to get the actual story across, and audiences may not enjoy the brain work it takes to try and understand what happened in this book. At least the first one, but this is obviously just my opinion. So who knows? Maybe I'm just not reading it properly. I mean, a story about a young kid who discovers a long lost magic art, has an old mentor, and must train to fight the evil king of the entire world. Yeah, sure, who wouldn't want to see that? That aside, Aragon has such a unique and detailed world, deep lore, and compelling characters that it makes up for its generic, overused story. I love dragons, of course. I love this. Aside from aside from that, I love this series, therefore I want it adapted. I also think the story is one that has enough unique qualities and a large enough fan base to be very successful. And there are many great moments that, if adapted, could be amazing. We already tried a movie, so let's go with a series, especially since this allows the story to be given the appropriate length. The massive world of Allegacia can be seen and developed, and key moments can be given attention as it adds a lot to the characters and the weight of the story. And there are a lot of key events and moments in the books that a series could give focus and given enough time, episodes and money. Here's hoping. I'm not specifying because he has so much that anything could be adapted. He has a wide variety of fantasy series that do a lot of different things that will break classic tropes and are just good reads. Given the variety of books, a series or movie could work. Elantris could be turned into a movie or even multiple. Mistborn would be a series, etc. There is a lot of potential here, and it is weird to me that none of his unique and creative stories have been adapted yet, since that would really help break the monotonous YA fantasy run we've had the last few years, and maybe help inspire some other series to pick up their quality to match the unbridled skill of Mr. Sanderson, the god of writing. Rick Riordan mixes fantasy and the modern world very well, and also does such a good job of conveying real and incredibly relatable human and teenage emotions and experiences, to the point where the character's therapy session becomes the reader's therapy session, on multiple occasions. The popularity of the Percy Jackson series has hope that more adaptations will come, even though the recent cancellation of Netflix's Kane film doesn't help. But there is still hope. Though he has said that the multiverse will come after, which makes sense since most of the other stories rely on the completion of Percy Jackson and even Heroes of Olympus and Trials of Apollo. My favorite of his works is actually Magnus Chase, with its comedy, tense themes, even more relatable moments, and genuine friendship and emotion. It takes the found family motif of the books even further. So if I had to choose one of his other series that I wanted adapted, it would be this one. And the violence of the books would be a decent change from the slightly toned down Percy Jackson series. And I really want a live action Alex Fiera. We need the green head. We need the green head Sast of the Child of Loki. A series would work best as the books are quite long, and to give those wonderfully tear-jerking moments the time they need to appropriately tear-jerk the audience and fans alike. I also don't trust movie adaptations of this series since the Percy Jackson movies. And finally, we have Epic, the beautiful child of the Odyssey and the talented and creative mind of Jay Harans. This is a musical story about Odysseus' journey home to Ithaca after the Trojan War, and it is fantastic. And the most recent sagas have given us some of the best songs yet. My love of mythology and Greek legends was a must for this one to be adapted, but also this is just an amazing and well crafted story that's full of talent and such an entertaining story. And the Odyssey is not something that has been adapted very much, surprisingly, since the Trojan War is such a well known story and has so many key heroes involved. Now, a Broadway musical makes sense for this project, obviously, but I think an animated series could also work well because one, there are a ton of animations for this musical already on YouTube, and two, I think that gives you more time to develop the story Jay has created here, and there are a ton of scenes that could be expanded to add even more emotion behind them. So, yeah, that's part one. Part two will cover a few more options as well, and I'll even have a few video games in there I feel like I want adapted as well. So yeah, keep a lookout for that, and also comment down below. Are there any projects you want to see adapted, and why you want these projects to be adapted?